Crossing the continent of Douqi, the story of an ordinary social animal walking step by step from Weimo to Doudi. No system, arrange opportunities reasonably. Try to avoid exaggerating or criticizing the characters in the original work. Keywords of the novel: Dou Po from Weimo to Doudi with no pop-ups, Dou Po from Weimo to Doudi TXT complete collection download, Dou Po from Weimo to Doudi latest chapter reading. Chapter 1, Douqi Continent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Douqi Continent. Douqi Continent Northwest. The northern part of the Gamma Empire, the city of Yutun. Yutun City, belonging to the Gamma Empire, was among the major cities of the Gamma Empire due to its advantageous location in the Warcraft mountains. The most powerful local forces in the city, apart from the Lord's Mansion and Mytel, are none other than the three major families of Yutun City, the Shao family, the Gallery family, and the Oba family. However, due to the disappearance of the older generation of doling from the three major families in Yutun City, and the stagnation of the current clan leaders in the stage of Dodosha. Over the past decade, Yutun City has rapidly fallen to the bottom of the list of major cities in the Gamma Empire. Hurry up, you useless bunch. Does this shopkeeper invite you to come and play with 2 gold coins every month? In the early morning, in front of a commercial shop in the south of Wutan City, more than 10 freight carriages were quietly parked at the entrance. A middle-aged man dressed in luxurious yellow clothes is currently touching his round belly, while urging the large group of porters constantly shuttling back and forth in front of him. This damn yellow-skinned guy is the same mother as the capitalist from Blue Star, right? Looking at the man in yellow who was heavier than his 200-gene cargo, Lin Feng kept roast in his heart. However, when he thought of the travel novels he had read before, he could not help but roast in his heart. How come other people travel to the big family, or they are directly taken away by the arrogant system? And for now, I have crossed directly to the Douqi continent with my physical body, and my body has turned into a 6-year-old appearance. If it weren't for my tenacious vitality, I would probably have starved to death on the streets long ago. That's right, Lin Feng is a traveler from the Blue Star. He was originally just one of the many hard-working workers on Blue Star. On the day of his journey, he left work, took a shower, and slept as usual. However, he never expected that when he woke up, he would inexplicably cross to the Douqi continent. Even worse, his body had regressed to the age of 6, coupled with language barriers and being penniless, almost causing him to starve to death on the streets. Fortunately, he displayed his shameless personality and successfully survived by begging. At the age of 13, 2 years ago, he found this job as a porter, which made his life more stable. In the evening, Lin Feng, who had completed his work, quickly approached the man in yellow who was about to leave the business and said, "Well, shopkeeper, I have something to do tomorrow. Can I take a day off?" Taking a leave? How much less goods do you need to move in a day when you take a leave? Is it worth the 2 gold coins I give you every month? Upon hearing Lin Feng's request, the man in yellow felt a bit unhappy and said angrily, "Everyone else's salary is 5 gold coins. If it weren't for my young age, they wouldn't want it. Who would have come to you?" Of course, Lin Feng can only think about this in his heart, but he dare not say it out loud. After all, he still has to rely on this job to make a living. Immediately, a smile appeared on his face and he said, "Shopkeeper, I really can't do anything about it. I hope you have a large amount, and I'll approve it this time." "Okay, I'll give you the approval this time, but there won't be another one, understand?" After saying that, the man in yellow impatiently touched his plump belly and walked away. "Thank you, shopkeeper." The next day. In the early morning, an unnamed mountain peak a few miles away from the city of Yutun is shrouded in a thin, pale mist that lingers for a long time. The light wind blows by, making it faintly visible in the field of vision. Under a hidden cliff on the mountain peak, Lin Feng sat cross-legged in this narrow cave. This cliff was the place he carefully selected for cultivation. Across the cliff, shrouded in clouds and mist, beneath the clouds was an invisible cliff. And the only path that can enter this place has already been covered by him with branches and gravel in advance, so there is no need to worry about being disturbed midway when practicing here. The reason why Lin Feng took a leave of absence to come here is because he has been sedimenting in the power of Jiudan Dou for a year, and now he wants to try to consolidate Dou's cyclone and advance to Dou. He was supposed to break through a few months ago, but considering that he didn't gather energy and the failure rate was too high, it has been delayed until today. Now, Xiao Yan, who is the same age as him, is also 15 years old. According to the original work, Yao Lao is also about to appear. He must break through the Dou before Xiao Yan, otherwise, the treasures of the Gamma Empire will be missed by him. When Lin Feng felt that his state had reached its peak, he murmured, "You must succeed." Then he took a deep breath and quickly activated the universal method of absorbing the qi of the Dou. Suddenly, the calm air surged violently. A faint white Dou qi, under the influence of special gravity, permeates from the air and continuously penetrates into Lin Feng's meridians. With the passage of time, more and more Douji qi was absorbed, and the meridians in Lin Feng's body had already been filled, but they were still constantly expanding. With the continuous absorption of Dou qi, finally, the Dou qi in Lin Feng's body had expanded to a critical point that could no longer be increased. The expansion of Douji qi caused his meridians and dantian to constantly emit intense pain, causing Lin Feng's expression to be somewhat distorted. Not long after, Lin Feng felt like he had reached his limit. If he didn't take any further action, he might not only fail to concentrate his fighting energy, but also damage his meridians. Taking a deep breath, according to the introductory book on Douji qi, the Douji qi in the meridians of the whole body was forcefully compressed towards the direction of the dantian. In an instant, the surging Douji qi in the body was like being subjected to a fierce suction, rapidly contracting towards the lower abdomen. When all the fighting qi has shrunk to the lower abdomen position, it is only the size of a palm. The originally pale Douji qi has also begun to transform into a milky white, irregular, and liquid-like dense gas, which is a phenomenon of Douji qi transforming into Dou qi. The energy absorbed during the stage of fighting is called fighting energy, and the energy absorbed after advancing to the stage of fighting is called true fighting energy. Although there is only a one-word difference between the two, the difference between them is like a world of difference, with no comparability. However, due to the fact that Dou qi is much milder than Dou qi. So when the physique is relatively fragile, people use the qi of Dou to wash their meridians and bones, enhance their physique, and lay the foundation for absorbing the qi of Dou in the future. And this stage is called the power of struggle. Upon seeing this scene, Lin Feng gritted his teeth and knew that success or failure depended on whether he could turn Dantian's chaotic fighting spirit into a self-rotating fighting spirit cyclone. If it cannot successfully coalesce into a cyclone this time, it will fall back to the energy of the 8 Dan Dou, and those who want to challenge Dou again will have to wait at least a year. With a horizontal heart, Lin Feng's eyes closed tightly, and suddenly he compressed down hard again, while shouting loudly, "Douji cyclone, give me a coagulation." Bang! With a soft muffled sound echoing inside his body, the exhilarating feeling of effort that had exhausted Lin Feng dissipated out of thin air. At this moment, Lin Feng also breathed a heavy sigh of relief, and a hanging heart fell with it. Now that the Douqi cyclone has successfully condensed, Lin Feng has officially entered the door of Douqi cultivation from now on. It seems that my luck is good. I successfully gathered the fighting spirit cyclone on the first attempt. The 15-year-old fighter, in the Gamma Empire, is also considered a second-line genius. Lin Feng chuckled softly as he successfully advanced to the battle. Then he took a light breath, closed his eyes slightly, and his mind gradually sank into his body. Insights are an auxiliary skill that can only be mastered at the level of a fighter. The higher the strength, the more thorough the exploration of the situation inside the body. At the point where the mind sinks into the lower abdomen, a palm-sized milky white cyclone is slowly spinning, enveloping a layer of nebular-like milky white energy gas around the periphery of the cyclone. Lin Feng nodded in satisfaction as he gazed at the small cyclone with his heart. Although the current volume of cyclones is very small, the energy contained in them is definitely more than 10 times stronger than the previous Jiudan Douqi. The mind controlled the cyclone, with a slight movement in its heart. A milky white fighting spirit quickly separated from the cyclone and rushed away as pointed out by the mind. The mind kept controlling the cyclone's throughput, and when his curiosity was satisfied, Lin Feng stopped his playful behavior and slowly withdrew from his body. The tightly closed eyes suddenly opened, and in the pitch-black pupils, the milky white light lingered for about 10 seconds before gradually dissipating. Although Lin Feng has successfully consolidated his fighting spirit, he is not yet a true fighter. Because he has not yet transformed his non-attribute fighting spirit into his corresponding attribute fighting spirit. Returning to his senses from the joy of advancing to the next level, Lin Feng couldn't help but frown at the thought of his martial arts. On the Douqi continent, the Douqi levels are divided into 11 major levels: Douji Li, Douzhe, Doushi, Doushi, Douling, Douwang, Douhuang, Douzong, Douzun, Dousheng, and Doudi. And each major level is divided into 1 to 9 stars. In the stage of combat power, special guidance methods are generally used to peel off the combat power in the air and then absorb it on its own. Although this is inefficient, the human body is already fragile in the stage of combat power and cannot absorb too much combat power. Instead, it is an excellent choice. But for those who advance to the battle, their physical fitness has greatly improved, and this method is not suitable anymore. So, after countless years of exploration, our predecessors invented the Douqi technique. After countless people's development, people have divided the level of Douqi cultivation into 4 levels and 12 levels from high to low: Tian, Di, Xian, and Huang. And each level is further divided into 3 levels: initial, intermediate, and advanced. Practicing the Douqi technique not only transforms the non-attribute Douqi in the body into the corresponding attribute Douqi, but also determines the level of the Douqi technique practiced, which is one of the key factors determining the level of future achievements. For example, people who practice advanced Huangjie techniques naturally have much stronger fighting spirit than those of the same level who practice low-level Huangjie techniques. However, it is difficult for ordinary people to obtain advanced Douqi cultivation techniques. At most, the techniques passed down among the ordinary class are only yellow-level advanced techniques. Ordinary people, if they advance to the level of Dou, usually receive their own elders to cultivate their martial arts. Although it may not be very good, there is at least a guarantee. And Lin Feng has traveled through time, and there are no elders or awakened systems in the Douqi continent. Living is not easy, and there are not so many gold coins to purchase martial arts. Although he knows there are many treasures in the Gamma Empire, he doesn't have the strength to take them now. Why not go to Canaan College? Lin Feng muttered to himself. Then he shook his head again. Canaan Academy was too far away from the Gamma Empire. When he returned in a few years, it was estimated that these treasures of the Gamma Empire would have been plundered by Xiao Yan long ago, and there was no place for him. Then join a certain sect. After thinking for a moment, Lin Feng still gave up on this choice. There are no better sects in the Gamma Empire, and the only one that looks like something is the Yunlan sect, which is also related to the Soul Hall. The water is too deep. After a while, Lin Feng couldn't come up with any ideas. He sighed lightly and got up to walk towards the city of Wutan. End of this chapter. Chapter 2, Holding Back. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2, Holding Back. Hey, have you heard about it? Yesterday, the young master of Yunlan's sect personally brought someone to the Shao family to divorce, and it seems like he made a 3-year agreement. I just heard that this kind of thing happened, and I would like to see what kind of face this father and son Xiao Zhan still have to live on. After speaking, the person chuckled, with a smirk of schadenfreude on his face. That's right, if I were to cut myself on the spot, I wouldn't embarrass the family. At the entrance of Wutan City, Lin Feng saw this scene and thought to himself, did Yun Lanzong come to divorce yesterday? Unfortunately, he was working all day yesterday. Otherwise, there might be a chance to see the scene of divorce. However, it seems that Yao Lao is also about to appear. On the way back to the city and towards the commercial store, Lin Feng couldn't help but shake his head when he heard countless mocking conversations about Xiao Yan's withdrawal. From this, it can be basically confirmed that the Gale and Oba families are behind the scenes, using this incident to disgust the Xiao family. However, being ridiculed by so many people is indeed closely related to Xiao Yan himself. Back then, when Xiao Yan's talent was still there, he relied on a fighter and several strong fighters appointed by Xiao Zhan to protect him and act recklessly in the city of Yutun, but offended many people. At that time, Lin Feng also wanted to establish a good relationship with Xiao Yan, who was the same age as him. When Xiao Yan's strength declined for 3 years, he would occasionally feed him sold chicken soup. In this case, when Xiao Yan becomes more developed, there will definitely be some benefits that he cannot do without himself. Unfortunately, at that time, Xiao Yan's cultivation talent had already been widely promoted by the Xiao family. Moreover, as the son of Xiao Zhan, the head of the Xiao family, Lin Feng's position does not qualify him to speak to this genius from Wutan City. Divorce? Suck in the palm. Lin Feng suddenly remembered that on the day after Xiao Yan's divorce in the original work, it seemed like he was picking up a low-level martial arts skill in Jiafeng City and sucking his palm. Thinking of this, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. This was the easiest opportunity for him to obtain the Xuanjia fighting technique, and he must seize it well. Immediately, he took off and ran towards Jiafeng City. I arrived at Jiafeng City and walked past several stalls before finally finding the black iron plate at a small corner stall. Finally found it. Lin Feng looked at the black iron plate on the stall and felt the faint soul wave on it, feeling a sigh of relief in his heart. The black iron sheet is very ancient, covered in rust spots, and also contains some uncleaned yellow mud, which looks like an object recently excavated from the soil. But Lin Feng knew that there was a volume of low-level combat skills in this. Douqi, as the name suggests, after practicing, when Douqi passes through the meridians recorded in Douqi, it can be unleashed in a unique way, doubling its power. Of course, fighting skills also have levels, and there is no difference from the level of martial arts. However, compared to martial arts at the same level, the former has a lower value. Lin Feng calmed his mind. These guys are all unscrupulous merchants. As soon as he sees that you show a liking for something, he will bid a markup on the horse. He doesn't want to be a scapegoat, let alone he doesn't have much money in his hands. Walking to the stall, Lin Feng did not touch the magic cores worth several hundred gold coins, but casually picked up a few old miscellaneous items to take a look. When I saw the crystal ball testing my Douqi attribute, I realized that I had never tested my Douqi attribute before. He picked up one casually and smiled at the mercenary man behind the vendor who looked somewhat suspicious, saying, "Boss, how much does this cost?" 10 gold coins. The man glanced at the things in Lin Feng's hand and saw that he was dressed in ordinary clothes, not like a wealthy man, so he quoted a fair price. "Can it be cheaper?" The man waved his hand impatiently and said, "No, the crystal balls for testing their properties are priced at this price throughout the entire market. If you find them too expensive, go to the mine and dig them yourself, and then polish them for use." Okay, Lin Feng nodded in disappointment, then started digging around on himself and finally gathered enough 10 gold coins to hand to the man. The man looked at the quantity and then waved his hand to signal that Lin Feng could leave. "My desk is not very stable, can you please give me a table?" Lin Fengqiang suppressed his excitement and casually picked up the black iron plate. "Okay, get out of here, don't block my business here." The man glanced at the item in Lin Feng's hand and found it was just a tattered iron sheet he picked up casually in the Warcraft mountains. He impatiently responded and pushed Lin Feng aside. Lin Feng didn't care either. After saying thank you, he took his things and prepared to leave Jiafeng City. "Excuse me, do you sell this black iron sheet?" Just as he turned the corner, a young man in black, about the same age as Lin Feng, quickly stopped him and pointed to the black iron plate path that Lin Feng was about to put into his collar. Lin Feng looked up and found that the man in black who was blocking him had seen it before, and it was Xiao Yan. After a moment of confusion, I quickly guessed that the old medicine practitioner had sensed something inside the black iron plate. However, when his gaze shifted to the woman next to him, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. The young girl was cold and indifferent, like the first blooming of a clear lotus. At a young age, she had already developed a refined temperament, and her graceful figure presented an enticing curve. It was hard to imagine how the girl would be so beautiful if she grew up in the future. Lin Feng thought to himself, is this Xiao Suner? She's really pretty, but unfortunately, it's almost impossible to establish a good relationship with Xiao Suner now. Quickly regaining consciousness, he spoke to Xiao Yan, not for sale. Xiao Yan looked at Lin Feng's clothes and pretended to be casual, saying, my table happens to be a bit uneven. I need something to cushion it. I think the iron plate in your hand is quite suitable. Alright, I'll give you 5 gold coins. How about you sell that iron plate to me? Upon hearing familiar words, Lin Feng tugged at the corner of his mouth. With Xiao Yan's acting skills, if it weren't for his reading of the original work, he might have really been deceived. He then said, not really, not for sale. Does he also know the secret of this black iron sheet? Xiao Yan thought to himself when he saw Lin Feng refuse. But thinking of what Yao Lao just said, there is at least one mysterious level of fighting skills in this iron piece. The highest level of fighting skills in the Xiao family is only at this level, and its value is self-evident. With the addition of Xiao Yan now, he has not yet seen the magnificent world outside, and his vision has not been opened up. Faced with the temptation of the mysterious level combat skills, it is really difficult to resist. Furthermore, Lin Feng in front of him was just a teenager, dressed in very ordinary clothes, and didn't seem to have any background. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan cleared his throat and said, let me introduce myself. I am the head of the Xiao family, the son of the 5-star fighting master Xiao Zhan, and the 3rd young master of the Xiao family. As he spoke, his tone changed and he said, the recent city of Yuten has been a bit uneasy. It's not surprising to have a few people. Do you want to stop considering it seriously? Yao Lao saw Xiao Yan's movements and did not speak out to stop him. After all, the law of the jungle is the main melody of Douqi continent. This kind of thing is just too normal in the Douqi continent, and in addition, Lin Feng is just an ant with 10 levels of fighting power, so there is no danger in any place. Being threatened by someone, Lin Feng felt angry in his heart, but considering his own strength, he forgave himself and immediately said, since 3rd young master wants to buy it, I bought it for 10,000 gold coins. How about selling it to 3rd young master at the original price? 10,000 gold coins. Hee, you think I'm a fool? Xiao Yan sneered in anger. When he was just looking for the 1st level magic core with a wooden attribute in the distance, he was reminded by the medicine elder that although he couldn't hear the conversation between Lin Feng and the vendor clearly due to the distance being too far and the noisy noise of the people in the neighborhood, the clothes on Lin Feng's body also showed that he definitely couldn't get 10,000 gold coins. This was treating him Xiao Yan as a scapegoat. Lin Feng suppressed his anger and said, so what do you want? This is 100 gold coins, please give me the iron plate. Upon hearing this, Lin Feng had an impulse to kill Xiao Yan with a single punch. You should know that a low-level combat skill of a mysterious level is worth over 100,000 gold coins. But now Xiao Yan is actually using 100 gold coins to force a purchase, which is really deceiving others. But for the sake of the sword, for the sake of the fish and meat, Lin Feng could only silently take the gold coin, hand out the iron plate, and leave this place in frustration. At this moment, he had never longed for power so much. The old medicine practitioner in Neji looked at Lin Feng as he left and sighed. It's not easy for this young man to quickly recognize his situation and give up what he has already obtained. Xiao Yan, wait for me, kid. It's best not to let me seize the opportunity, otherwise I won't disgust you. Returning to the cave of the breakthrough fighter, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel angry and said angrily. When his mood calmed down, Lin Feng took out the crystal ball he had bought before and held it tightly, then injected a fighting spirit into it. At the moment when Douqi entered the crystal ball, a fiery red light burst out from the crystal ball, reflecting the gray-white stone walls around the cave red. Fire attribute? It's okay, isn't it? Looking at the fiery red, Lin Feng was about to put away the crystal ball, but suddenly caught a glimpse of a faint green light emerging from the fiery red light. Seeing this green light, Lin Feng couldn't help but blurt out, firewood attribute. His expression became pleasantly surprised. Having the attribute of firewood, coupled with his strong soul perception due to time travel, this means that he has the talent to become an alchemist. Alchemists, as the name suggests, can use medicinal cauldrons to refine various magical pills. If a certain force has a strong alchemist, it can help its disciples quickly improve their strength, treat injuries, and continuously attract strong players to the sect, greatly increasing its strength. So, any alchemist will be tried to win over and please by all parties. End of this chapter. Chapter 3, Killing Liu Xi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3, Killing Liu Xi. The reason why alchemists can receive such treatment is naturally related to its scarcity and practicality. To become an alchemist, the conditions are extremely demanding. Firstly, one must possess the attribute of fire, and secondly, there must be a trace of wood gas mixed in the fire body to serve as a catalyst for refining medicine. You should know that the attributes of the human body in Douqi continent depend on their soul. A soul always has only one attribute and cannot be mixed with other attributes. So, it is basically impossible for a body to have two different strengths and weaknesses. Of course, nothing is absolute. Among billions of people, there will always be some mutated souls, and those who possess mutated souls have the potential to become alchemists. However, a soul with the attribute of firewood alone cannot become a true alchemist. Because another necessary condition for an alchemist is also indispensable, which is the perceptual power of the soul, also known as soul-shaping power. Under such harsh conditions, those who are qualified to become alchemists are certainly rare. And with fewer alchemists, those magical elixirs are naturally very rare. Rare things are precious, which is why alchemists have such a noble and even distorted identity. Like the original works of Haibudong and Tian Huizun, they went through countless trials and tribulations to invite Xiao Yan to refine medicine. In the end, Xiao Yan delivered the pill and had to thank Xiao Yan, owing him a favor. From this, we can see the high status of alchemists. The next day. Lin Feng, you can count it now. Hurry up and go to the back door to help load the goods. In the shop, the shopkeeper saw Lin Feng coming and quickly called him, looking a bit anxious. Okay, I'll go right away. Seeing the shopkeeper's appearance, Lin Feng felt a little curious and asked, Shopkeeper, why are you so anxious? Upon hearing this, the shopkeeper turned his hands back and proudly lifted his head, saying, You weren't there yesterday, of course you didn't know. When I went to Jinbei City yesterday, the shopkeeper met a first-class alchemist at the Wanhua building. I learned about the master's hobbies, gritted my teeth, and smashed tens of thousands of gold coins to buy a snake woman and send her over. Speaking of which, the shopkeeper remembered the charming and seductive snake woman from yesterday, with a hint of warmth and reluctance in her eyes, and then she was filled with excitement again. Patted his hands and exclaimed excitedly, After receiving the snake girl, Master Liu Xi has agreed. Not only will he entrust our business with the medicinal materials he needs for refining medicine in the future, but also the medicine that master refines every month will be sold to us in 20%. The shopkeeper thought of the continuous huge profits in the future and couldn't help but think of the happy life ahead. Upon hearing this, Lin Feng already understood why the shopkeeper was so happy today. The business he is in is one of the top in Wutan City, with a monthly net profit of around a few thousand gold coins. If he could be accompanied by a first-class alchemist, this profit would probably double again. Wait, Liu Xi. Lin Feng thought for a moment, isn't this the alchemist who helped the Jia Lai and Xiao families fight against in the original work? He remembers that Liu Xi was still a disciple of a third-grade alchemist, so his family should be quite wealthy. Thinking of this, a strange light flashed in Lin Feng's eyes. By the way, I was so happy today that I almost forgot. You should go help immediately now. If it delays me from delivering medicinal herbs to Master Liu Xi, I won't give you good fruit to eat. The shopkeeper suddenly remembered that Lin Feng was still here and shouted. I'll go now, Lin Feng replied, then ran towards the back door. Zhenbei City. Lin Feng followed the freight team of the commercial company to the Liu Xi mansion. After unloading all the medicinal materials with everyone, he ran to the shopkeeper and said, Shopkeeper, I want to resign. Resignation. Upon hearing Lin Feng's words, the shopkeeper was taken aback and immediately asked, when? Lin Feng replied, today. Upon hearing this, the shopkeeper was taken aback and said, today? So urgent? Yes, Lin Feng nodded. After a month of tinkering, he had already obtained the life trajectory of Liu Xi from the shopkeeper. Now is the perfect time to implement his plan. If we miss this one, we will have to wait a few more months. Okay, the shopkeeper didn't pay much attention to a porter and pulled out a few gold coins, saying, this is your salary for this period of time. Thank you, shopkeeper. Lin Feng took the gold coin and left the place carrying a large cloth bag. After walking a distance, Lin Feng quickly turned the direction and ran towards the outside of the city. I ran along the road for a few miles, found a suitable tree in the nearby forest, and climbed up a few times. Holding an explosive bag containing 100 pounds of black gunpowder in his hand, Lin Feng carefully hid on a big tree, patiently waiting for the arrival of his target. His goal this time is precisely Liu Xi. Since Lin Feng learned about Liu Xi's information from the shopkeeper a month ago, after several struggles, he decided to take a risk and start planning to kill Liu Xi. If successful, not only can you obtain advanced techniques, but you can also obtain various items needed to learn medicine refining techniques. Later, after some indirect attacks, he obtained the life trajectory of Liu Xi from the shopkeeper. Upon learning that teacher Liu Xi lives in another city not far from Zhenbei City, the reason why he came to Zhenbei City was to conveniently avoid his teacher's supervision. However, every once in a while, Liu Xi would go to see his teacher, and today is the day when Liu Xi went to see his teacher. Although he knew about Liu Xi's schedule, Lin Feng's cultivation level of 10 Dan combat power was clearly unable to defeat Liu Xi, let alone several fighter guards beside him. So, Lin Feng leveraged the advantage of a time traveler and after a period of tinkering, he created a black fire powder explosive package. Although it is difficult to kill the fighter from the front, there is still a high possibility of being killed by a surprise attack. After Lin Feng waited for a while, four strong men supporting a young man in white slowly appeared in his eyes. The young man in white, led by him, appeared to be in his 20s and quite handsome, but the occasional hint of obscenity in his pupils destroyed his appearance. At this moment, the young man's face was full of impatience. Obviously, the daily sex life in his town's northern city made him not want to see his teacher. Seeing everyone approaching, Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a hint of madness. Traveling once, he originally only wanted to live a better life for himself. However, the Douqi continent is too cruel. If he cannot become stronger, he can only be bullied by others. When a few people arrived not far from the tree, they quickly lit the fuse on top with a fire folder and threw it downwards. Then they quickly hugged the tree trunk and hid behind. He has tested the burning time of the lead wire, and the burning time is less than 2 seconds. In addition, these doublers do not know what the explosive package is, so it is likely that they cannot avoid it. What person? The people below suddenly saw something flying towards them from above, shouted loudly, and instinctively picked up weapons to block. 2 of the strong men drew their weapons and stabbed towards the direction of the explosive charge. At the moment when the explosive bag was about to come into contact with everyone's weapons, a dazzling light was emitted, and then everyone only heard a loud bang, and the cloth bag exploded above their heads. A large number of broken iron pieces inside the cloth bag were also rapidly rushed towards the surroundings by the scorching airflow, and many branches of the trees in the surrounding forest were cut off, most of which fell into the bodies of Liu Xi and others. A few people below were also hit several meters away by the impact of the explosion, and 2 unlucky people even had their bodies blown into pieces. As the explosion fell, a large amount of meat and organs, along with the branches and leaves of the surrounding trees, also fell to the ground. Halfway down, there was no movement below. Lin Feng's hands and feet were a bit weak, and he trembled as he descended the tree. Looking at the debris on the ground, he breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. His action this time was not successful, so he agreed. However, seeing the ground covered with limbs, Lin Feng suddenly felt a bit nauseous. But he also knew that the people around him would definitely come this way when they heard any commotion, so he suppressed his nausea and began to grope through the minced meat. Hey, we have stock now. Looking at the na ring that was peeled off from Liu Xi's finger, Lin Feng grinned at the corner of his mouth. It was a family property of an alchemist, but for him now, it was a huge sum of money. However, he doesn't have the time to carefully count at the moment, and once he collects it, he continues to search. Not long after, Lin Feng had a few more scrolls and gold coin cards in his hand, and looking at the scattered gold coins on the ground, there were about a few thousand. Forget it, hurry up and leave here. With such a loud noise, others must be on their way over. Picking up what had just been seized, Lin Feng casually picked up a piece of cloth to wipe away the blood stains on it, ran to the forest, pulled out the horses that had already been prepared, and quickly rode away from here. A few hours later, Lin Feng arrived at a cave and decided to practice his martial arts here before heading on his way. Otherwise, he would encounter bandits, and he who had not practiced his martial arts would not be able to cope. Taking out the ring he received from Liu Xi, his soul's perception slowly seeped into his palm. In a moment, an indescribable joy surged on his face. The collection in Liu Xi's Najie is extremely rich, with items such as martial arts and combat skills, prescriptions, medicine cauldrons, gold coins, pills, and medicinal herbs that he urgently needs now. No wonder the ancients said they killed and set fire to the golden belt, but they didn't deceive me. He sighed as he looked at the ring in his palm. Take out a scroll and take a look at the small characters on it, Xian level intermediate skill, red fire technique. Then he picked up several other scrolls, except for a low-level martial arts skill called Red Fire Palm, all of which were prescriptions for first and second grade pills. Seeing the fighting skills, Lin Feng was somewhat disappointed. He thought that the fighting skills would be at the intermediate level of the Xian level, just like the martial arts, but he didn't expect it to be at the lower level of the Xian level. It seems that Liu Xi doesn't like fighting. However, this fighting technique is complementary to the martial arts, and when used, it should be stronger than ordinary fighting techniques of the same level. At half-mast, Lin Feng finished counting the harvest and curiously picked up a gold coin card to take a look. This was the first time he had seen a bank card from Douqi continent. The gold coin card is similar to Blue Star's savings card as a whole, with a number of 100,000 on it, which appears to be the balance on the card. Putting away the card, Lin Feng picked up the scroll of Xian level intermediate martial arts and began to practice. Everyone, if you see it, can you give a comment? So that the author can know everyone's thoughts. End of this chapter. Chapter 4, Alchemist Apprentice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Alchemist Apprentice. After half a sound, Lin Feng had successfully practiced the technique and his mind was gradually sinking into his body. Suddenly, the complex and almost terrifying meridian image appeared in my heart. Control the mind to quickly shuttle through several meridians, and then quickly reach the top of the cyclone at the lower abdomen position. Now his Douqi cyclone not only accommodates an area that is several times wider than before when practicing martial arts. Moreover, the red fighting spirit flowing in it is of a quality far beyond that of his attribute-free fighting spirit before practicing his martial arts. With a slight movement of the mind, a strand of crimson fighting spirit suddenly flowed out of the cyclone and quickly flowed along the meridians. As the fighting spirit began to circulate, Lin Feng could feel with certainty that the powerful force within his body was gradually climbing to a peak that had never been reached before. Slowly opening his eyes, a smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. With his cultivation speed after converting to martial arts, he can advance to the level of 2-star Dou for at most 1 month. After practicing his martial arts, Lin Feng immediately got up and rode his horse straight towards the Black Rock City. He doesn't want to stay in Yutun City anymore, and Qingshan Town is too barren, while Black Rock City is a good place. Moreover, due to the existence of the Black Rock City Alchemists Guild, there are a large number of alchemists in the city, and they can easily purchase the medicinal materials they need to learn how to refine medicine. Black Rock City is a large city located in the eastern province of the Gamal Empire, with a larger scale than Yutun City. In terms of overall strength, it can also rank among the top among all the large cities in the Gama Empire. Lin Feng looked at the huge city that reflected a faint red glow in the sunset, and breathed a slight sigh of relief. These days of wilderness life have caused him a lot of suffering. Approaching, Lin Feng realized that the huge city wall of this city was surprisingly 4 to 50 meters high. Compared to the walls of Yutun City, they were more than twice as high and were entirely constructed from neat black rocks, which left him extremely shocked. After arriving at the city gate and paying taxes, he was smoothly put inside and passed through some dark city wall passages. After a moment, the line of sight suddenly became clear, and there was a bustling sound of people. Lin Feng's ears flooded in, causing his head to slightly swell as he was caught off guard. Upon arriving in the city, Lin Feng discovered that Black Rock City was truly one of the top cities in the Gamma Empire. Although it was already dusk, the streets were still bustling with people. And occasionally, there are also orderly guards passing by, the sound of armor colliding with each other, intimidating some people with ulterior motives. Lin Feng wandered on the street for a while until the sky became pitch black. He casually walked into an inn, rented a room, and in the room, began to study the alchemist books he had obtained from Liu Xi's precepts. In the early morning, Lin Feng sat cross-legged on the bed in the inn room, his hands crossed, his eyes tightly closed, and under the guidance of his martial arts, the fighting energy around his body also entered his meridians. I don't know how long I followed, but a muffled sound came from within Lin Feng's body, as if he had broken through some obstacle. Then he slowly opened his eyes. The 2-star fighter can almost practice refining medicine, Lin Feng murmured. He has been studying introductory books on alchemists every day for the past month, and by this time, his heart has become unbearable. He can't wait to personally get started and practice. After washing up, he left the inn and walked towards the Medicine Refining Guild in Black Rock City. He had inquired before, and as long as you pass the test of the Alchemist Guild and prove that you have the talent to become an alchemist, a certificate of apprenticeship as an alchemist will be issued to you. With this certificate, not only can you freely enter and exit the Pharmacist Union, but you can also rent the Pharmacist Union's pharmacy. Of course, this is for paying rent, 300 gold coins per day. But that is the Alchemist Union, a practice venue specially built for alchemist apprentices, which can ensure that they are not disturbed when refining medicine. At the same time, it can also cover up the movements emitted during the refining process. Turning around several quite long streets, after a while, Lin Feng slowly stopped and looked up at the magnificent building that appeared before him. This house has a rather unique design, and the overall appearance roughly looks like a medicine cauldron. Around the house, there are also windows like medicine cauldrons leading to a fire. On the high roof, a large cauldron cover crawls down, covering the room underneath. My gaze was fixed on the pale purple sandalwood plaque outside the building, with 5 faint and somewhat blurry ancient fonts shimmering with a faint gleam. Alchemist Guild. He murmured softly in his mouth and then walked inside. Approaching the door, 2 heavily armed men reached out to stop him and said in a buzzing voice, "Little brother, this is the Medicine Refiners Guild. Do you want to enter? Do you have a letter of introduction from your mentor?" Lin Feng arched his hand and said, "Big brothers, I have come to apply for the certificate of apprenticeship as an alchemist." Applying for an apprentice certificate from an alchemist? First, test your fighting spirit attribute. Upon hearing this, one of the strong men proficiently took out a crystal ball and handed it to Lin Feng. Lin Feng stepped forward and took the crystal ball, injecting a fighting spirit into it. As expected, the crystal ball burst into a fiery red light, with a hint of green in it. "This little brother, you can go in now," said the strong man with a hint of flattery in his tone when he saw the reaction of the crystal ball. "Thank you very much." Then Lin Feng slowly took a step and walked inside. Entering the Medicine Refining Guild, a faint fragrance of medicine rushed towards me, making me feel a bit relaxed and happy. Inside the hall, there were not many people, only a few of them were quietly doing their own things. Seemingly hearing footsteps, some people raised their heads and glanced at Lin Feng, then buried their heads again and went their separate ways. At this moment, a woman dressed in a light blue dress hurriedly walked out of a backstage and then walked quickly towards Lin Feng. "Sir, judging from your unfamiliar appearance, this should be your first time visiting our Medicine Refining Guild in Black Rock City, right?" Smiling as she approached Lin Feng, the woman in blue scanned her beautiful eyes before asking with a smile. Lin Feng looked at the woman in green in front of her. Her bright eyes and white teeth were quite likable. "This is indeed my first time here," he said with a smile. "I came here to prove my identity as an apprentice of an alchemist. On your end, please." Upon hearing this, a hint of respect appeared on the pretty face of the woman in green. She stepped back a few steps and walked to the counter, smiling at Lin Feng. Taking out a yellowed antique parchment from the counter, the woman in blue elegantly held the pen and looked up at Lin Feng with a smile. "Sir, please name your name, age, and mentor's name. Yahan needs to register for you." Lin Feng increased his age by 2 years and said, "Lin Feng, he is 17 years old, and his mentor is not yet available." "Don't you have a mentor?" Okay." The woman named Yahan wrote it down on paper, took out a medal from the counter, and then handed it to Lin Feng along with a form. "You just need to take these 2 to test with Master inside. After passing, the Master will perform special processing on the medal, so that the various alchemist guilds in the Gamma Empire can read your identity information through this badge." After thanking him, Lin Feng followed the instructions and came to an old man, handing over the 2 objects that Yahan had just given him. "Try putting your hands on it." The old man named Master pointed to the crystal fairway on the left side of the wooden table in front of him. Upon hearing this, Lin Feng stepped forward and placed his hand on the crystal ball, injecting his fighting spirit. When he saw that the Douqi attribute matched, Master nodded and continued, "Put your hand on another crystal ball that tests soul perception." Lin Feng followed suit, but unlike before, this time the crystal ball emitted a black light that looked quite eerie. Upon seeing this, Master took the medal of the alchemist apprentice and made another move, then threw it to Lin Feng and said, "It's okay." Upon receiving the apprentice medal of the medicine refiner, Lin Feng quickly rented a pharmacy here. Entering a pharmacy, Lin Feng found it empty, with nothing inside. However, when he saw the surrounding walls covered in black rocks, he couldn't help but marvel at the wealth and strength of the Alchemist Guild. Legend has it that this black rock can resist attacks at the Douwan level. If used to build an alchemy, it can absorb the energy that erupts during alchemy and prevent energy leakage, but the price is also extremely expensive. After observing the environment, Lin Feng adjusted his state and wiped the ring. A large cauldron instantly appeared on the ground in front of him. This medicine cauldron has a dark red color throughout its body, with a slight hint of light on top. Below the cauldron, there are two grotesque snake heads and large snake mouths carved, forming two interconnected fire holes. The curved and continuous inside the cavity, the deeper it goes, the smaller the diameter. When viewed faintly, it seems to contain mysteries. This is the fire hole of the medicinal cauldron, and it is also the thing that distinguishes the level of the medicinal cauldron. And the number of burners in front of Lin Feng's medicine cauldron is 2, which is called 2 medicine cauldrons, and it is the lowest level medicine cauldron. Generally speaking, the more fire openings a cauldron has, the more advanced and rare the medicinal cauldron is. However, to control multiple fire openings, a stronger soul perception is required. Of course, this kind of fire is not just a matter of drilling a few holes, the mysteries inside are difficult for lay people to perceive. The muzzle is the essence of the medicine tripod, which needs high-precision polishing. If there is a slight error during the creation, the whole medicine tripod will become a failure. At the top of the medicine cauldron, a giant snake coiled around it, forming a dark red cauldron lid. There is also a special hole on the cauldron lid, which is a place specifically for adding medicinal herbs. On the lid of the tripod, there are some fine holes made of ice silver scattered, which have the effect of heat dissipation to prevent high temperatures from causing furnace explosions. In the middle of the medicine cauldron, a transparent mirror made of cold ice essence is placed. From here, you can clearly see all the movements inside while refining the medicine. The surface of the medicine cauldron is painted with beautiful Warcraft carvings, lifelike in appearance, like living creatures. Seeking recommendation. End of this chapter. Chapter 5, Initial Refining Medicine. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5, Initial Refining Medicine. Looking at the medicine cauldron, Lin Feng nodded in satisfaction. The medicine cauldron obtained from Liu Xi, although only the 2 lowest level medicine cauldrons. But for beginners like him, it's the most suitable. Taking a deep breath, Lin Feng picked up the beginner's book on alchemy obtained from Liu Xi and read the recorded techniques for using the medicine cauldron again. Subsequently, as mentioned above, place your hand on the fire of the medicine cauldron and use your fighting spirit to reach the palm of your hand. As soon as the fighting spirit reached the palm of Lin Feng's hand, the medicine cauldron instantly emitted a wave of suction, sucking the fighting spirit from Lin Feng's palm through the fire. Puff! With a muffled sound, the Douqi airflow suddenly transformed into a crimson flame after passing through the fire. Within the medicine cauldron, constantly churning and burning. Suddenly, Lin Feng's palm spewed fire, which startled him and almost reflexively pulled his hand back. Fortunately, he remembered what the book had taught him, which suppressed his panic. Watching the flames churning inside the medicine cauldron, I closed my eyes and my mind slowly froze. The powerful soul perception constantly scans back and forth within the body, scanning the faint force of wood. Nearly 10 minutes later, Lin Feng finally found the faint force of wood within his body. Extend a finger and lightly light it on the other flame. A very thin green airflow is slowly poured in. The green airflow had just entered the medicine cauldron, and the crimson flames inside suddenly quieted down as if a chemical reaction had occurred. At this time, even if Lin Feng has not yet controlled the flames inside, it can also be felt that the violent factor in the flames has been neutralized by the power of wood. And due to the principle of wood making fire, the flame at this time is clearly more persistent and controllable than before. Leaving the medicine cauldron with his palm, he picked up a roll of prescription called Reviving Spring Powder, and looked at it again. Spring Returning Powder is a non-flowing prescription that can be sprinkled on wounds to stop bleeding and prevent infection. However, it can only be used for external injuries. The required materials are azure blue flower, spring returning grass, and baibao vine. As for the medicinal herbs needed for refining, he has already spent 20,000 gold coins to purchase 100 at the Mitel auction house, which is enough for him to practice. After reading it, I lit the fire again and bounced my finger on the ring. A faint light flashed through, and a green medicinal herb appeared in Lin Feng's hand, then was thrown into the medicine cauldron. As soon as Bai Qinghua entered the medicine cauldron, before Lin Feng could control it, flames surged up. In an instant it turned into a handful of pitch-black ashes, and was finally driven out of the cauldron by a special setting in the medicine cauldron. Ah! Lin Feng looked at the black ash inside the medicine cauldron and awkwardly scratched his head. He picked up a blue and white plant again and threw it in. This time, Bai Qinghua persisted in the flames for a while, but still turned into pitch-black ashes. The temperature seems to be higher. After more than a dozen repetitions, Lin Feng carefully controlled the flame, and his soul perception firmly compressed the temperature of the flame. Eyes peered through the icy mirror, staring intently at the blue and white plant suspended on the flames. After tossing in the medicine cauldron for a moment, the blue and white flowers gradually began to peel off their outer skin. The juice contained in the grass leaves is gradually smoked and roasted into a green powder. After a moment, Lin Feng obtained a powder that was green with scattered black spots. Looking at the finished product in his hand, Lin Feng's face showed a smile. Although the temperature control was still somewhat lacking this time, it was still considered a success. An hour later, Lin Feng looked at the more than 20 powders extracted from the blue and white flowers beside him and nodded in satisfaction. Then he picked up a spring grass and threw it into the medicine pot, starting to refine it. After extracting more than 20 more, he began to extract baibao vine. After extracting 20 portions of baibaoding, Lin Feng's face turned slightly pale and he could no longer hold on. He stopped extracting the medicine and sat on the ground powerless. Although his martial arts are at the intermediate level of the Xian level, controlling 2 medicinal cauldrons for nearly 4 hours is already his limit. It seems that refining medicine is not an easy task either. Feeling the almost exhausted fighting spirit in his body, Lin Feng sighed. Quickly sit cross-legged next to the medicine cauldron, practice the technique, and start practicing. At this time of cultivation, the effect is the best. After closing his eyes and cultivating for a period of time, the cyclone inside Lin Feng's body, which appeared dim due to exhaustion of fighting spirit, once again emitted a bright luster. Moreover, the halo this time seems to be slightly brighter than a few hours ago. Slowly opening his eyes, the tingling sensation of powerlessness all over his body dissipated for the most part. Twisting his neck, the sound of bones colliding made Lin Feng breathe comfortably. The most difficult and crucial step in starting to refine medicine is drug fusion. The reason why it is said to be the most difficult is because the amount of firepower required for each medicinal herb varies. And fusion drugs require the insertion of multiple medicinal herbs at once, requiring precise control of the firepower of each herb. Take a deep breath, skillfully ignite the fire, and throw the juice of baibaoding into the medicine cauldron. A few minutes later, I picked up the essence of rejuvenation grass and threw it in again. After the two merge, quickly throw in the blue and white powder. Lin Feng stared fiercely at the medicine cauldron, beginning to fuse the blue and white liquid, controlling the flames to start heating up. Bang! Seeing that the fusion was about to succeed, Lin Feng accidentally raised the flame temperature a bit, and the medicinal herbs inside instantly turned black and gray. Spit out a mouthful of turbid air and insert the material again. Fusion begins. Bang! The fire is too hot, it's a failure. Add the materials again. After several consecutive failures, Lin Feng felt that he had almost found the right heat. Injecting materials again, in an instant, the surging flames enveloped various materials again and began to merge. After the last strand of blue and gray color successfully merged, Lin Feng immediately reduced the gunpowder. When the time was ripe, with a fierce wave of the palm, a green liquid accurately fell into the prepared jade bottle. From now on, I can also be considered an alchemist. Looking at the medicine in the jade bottle, Lin Feng felt a surge of pride in his heart. Although it is mixed with some mottled colors due to the urgent firing process. But no matter what, this is already a bottle of medicine that can be sold normally. Roaming. Lin Feng pushed open the stone door of the alchemy room and glanced at the daily updated date table of the Alchemist Guild on the opposite wall. So it's already been 7 days. Lin Feng scratched his messy hair that had not been washed for a week. He has been frantically refining medicine for the past few days, and to his surprise, 7 days have already passed. Returning to the inn, I renewed my room for another month at the front desk. Go to the room, wash yourself thoroughly, wear the medal of your own alchemist apprentice, and then go to the trading market of the Alchemist Guild. Buying medicinal herbs there not only offers a wide variety of products, but also ensures greater safety compared to other places. After all, those who can set up stalls inside are definitely extremely wealthy. Unless you have some very rare item on you, who would have free time to be a robber? Entering the medicine refining guild, Lin Feng walked straight towards the eastern area, which was specifically designated as a trading area by the guild. Arriving at the trading area, the vendors here are vastly different from those outside. Not only did they not shout loudly to attract customers, but they sat leisurely on soft chairs, some even started brewing tea. If someone asks for a price, they will just stand up and talk to them. Hundreds of thousands of transactions often arise within a few simple conversations. After searching in the market for a while, Lin Feng came to a small stall that looked quite rich in medicinal herbs and asked the vendor, who was the age of Hua Jia, Senior, I want 30 medicinal herbs for hemostatic pills. Do you have them here? Hee. The old man touched his goatee and said with a smile, it's just a medicinal herb for a single pill. Even if you add so much quantity, you'll still have it. What is the price for those 30? Lin Feng asked again when he heard the old man's affirmative tone. 50,000 gold coins, or an equivalent value pill. Senior, this is a second-grade peak pill called Revitalizing Qi Pill. It should be enough, right? Upon hearing this, Lin Feng touched the ring and took out a wooden box, handing it over. The old man took the wooden box, opened it, and nodded slightly, saying, not bad, it's indeed a revitalizing pill. Take the things. As he spoke, the old man also touched his ring, and the originally spacious small stall was instantly filled with various medicinal herbs. Lin Feng's eyes swept over it without noticing any problem. He then collected it into the ring and bowed to the old man, saying, since the transaction is completed, I will retire. After speaking, he walked towards the pharmacy he rented. Thanks to Liu Xi's rich collection, otherwise I wouldn't be able to buy these 30 medicinal herbs even if I refined a month's rejuvenation liquid. Returning to the pharmacy, Lin Feng placed the medicinal herbs beside him and couldn't help but thank Liu Xi again. If it weren't for this top-notch alchemist bringing him so much, he might still be worried about his martial arts skills now. After adjusting his state, Lin Feng immediately released the medicine cauldron. Today, he is going to try refining a proper first-grade pill. Although he is already able to refine some medicinal liquids, only by refining pills in the shape of pills can he be considered a first-class alchemist. Skillfully lighting the fire, with a wave of his palm, a clotting herb beside him was thrown into the medicine cauldron. Is this the hemostatic pill? The prescription says it's blood red, right? This pill seems to have too strong a poison, can it be considered successful? Lin Feng looked at the dark red pill in his hand and thought with some uncertainty. Then he shook his head and finally understood why only by practicing pills can one be considered a first-class alchemist. He originally thought he could refine medicinal liquid, so refining pills wouldn't be too difficult. After working hard for half a day and using 30 servings of medicinal herbs, this thing came out. Thinking of those medicinal herbs, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel a hint of heartache in his eyes. He only received 3 revival pills from the Liu Xi Na ring. And during this half-day effort, all the medicinal herbs exchanged have been wasted. Lin Feng thought to himself, do you want to apprentice a alchemist? Immediately, Lin Feng extinguished this idea again. If he were to apprentice now and there were no special circumstances, he would have to stay by the teacher's side to study until he graduated. This is not much for ordinary people, but for Lin Feng, it is a disaster. After all, by that time, many of the adventures he knew would have been completely taken by Xiao Yan. Moreover, he is planning to go to Canaan College in 2 years. If he wants to become a teacher, then you can go to the college to study again. Isn't that a slap in the face of the teacher? End of this chapter. Chapter 6, Little Dr. Immortal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6, Little Dr. Immortal. Master, the total profit from selling pills this time is 50,000 yuan. According to the agreement, I will take 20%, which is 40,000 gold coins. In a courtyard in Blackrock City. A middle-aged man in yellow clothes with a slightly curved body respectfully took out a gold coin card and handed it to Lin Feng, who was wearing a black robe in front of him. On his chubby face, he was full of flattery, afraid of offending Lin Feng. After all, a year ago, the alchemist Liu Xi, whom he had finally made friends with, was killed by a mysterious person. As a result, all the nearly 100,000 gold coins he had invested in Liu Xi went bankrupt, and the business was on the verge of bankruptcy. Fortunately, he came to Blackrock City to try his luck and coincidentally met this mysterious alchemist. With the support of this alchemist, he finally recovered. Lin Feng took the card, glanced casually, and then put it into the ring. Under his robe, a slightly hoarse voice came from. Seeing the appearance of his former boss, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel a bit amused. A year ago, he stumbled upon his former shopkeeper on the street and heard his conversation with others. It was only then that I learned that it was because of my killing of Liu Xi that I became so destitute. And he also happened to need someone to help him sell pills, so he pulled on his former boss. However, to avoid causing trouble, he never used his true face. After clearing his throat, Lin Feng took out 2 bottles of purple orchid spirit liquid, which he had refined based on the prescription he had memorized, using a generic drug called Old Building Foundation Spirit Liquid. Shaking one of them firmly onto the coffee table in front of him, he continued, "These are 2 bottles of second-grade purple orchid spirit liquid, which have the same efficacy as the foundation building spirit liquid occasionally sold in your Wutan city." Second grade. Upon hearing these words, the man in yellow trembled with fat, and he lived in the city of Yuten. How could he not have heard of the foundation building liquid? Immediately, he picked up 2 jade bottles on the tea table with a surprised face, and flattered, "I'm really blind. I didn't expect that the master was a second-grade herbalist. Don't worry, I will help you sell them at a high price." "No need." Lin Feng shook his head and said to the puzzled gaze of the man in yellow, "I will be leaving Blackrock City in a few days. These 2 bottles of medicinal liquid will be the reward for helping me collect herbs these days." Leaving? Upon hearing this, the man in yellow's face instantly became anxious, thinking that Lin Feng was dissatisfied with the profit. He quickly said, "Master, if you have any dissatisfaction, feel free to raise it. I can also take a 10% share." Lin Feng shook his head again and said, "I left because of something important, not because of profit." "Master, this." "All right, you can say it again." "I have decided not to make any further changes." Hearing the slightly hoarse male voice coming from under the black robe, the man in yellow arched his hand in disappointment and then walked out of the courtyard helplessly. Seeing the man in yellow leave, Lin Feng pulled off his robe and entered the room in the courtyard to prepare supplies for survival in the wilderness. In a few days, he plans to go to the Warcraft mountains near Qingshan town to search for the cave with flying skills. During his year in Blackrock City, he not only advanced to the 2nd-level alchemist, but also gained strength as an 8-star fighter. Although I still dare not search alone in the Warcraft mountains near Qingshan town. But if you team up with some mercenaries, it's not a big problem. Moreover, with the strength of Lin Feng, an 8-star fighter, and his mysterious level combat skills, he is also capable of dealing with the vast majority of unexpected situations. Moreover, according to the original work, in about 3 months, Xiao Yan will go to Qingshan town to experience. At this point, if he doesn't look for it anymore, Xiao Yan will have to find it for him. Qingshan town, also known as Warcraft town due to its proximity to the Warcraft mountains, is home to the largest group of mercenaries who spend their days adding blood to their swords. They gather in groups, holding each other's arms and frolicking on the streets, discussing where the women in the small town are the most flavorful, where the wine is the strongest, and where the Warcraft is the most ferocious. After a few days of rushing, Lin Feng walked on the street paved with blue stones, which was covered in dust. On both sides of the street, there are many shops, and due to the favorable location, the popularity is quite fierce. However, as a second-grade alchemist, Lin Feng couldn't show any interest in the low-level items in those shops. Wanyao Zhai. As he was walking, Lin Feng's gaze suddenly swept over a herbal medicine store. I remember, there seems to be a piece of blood lotus essence in this herbal medicine store. I don't know if I can find it now. Thinking of this, Lin Feng immediately walked straight into the relatively spacious store. Blood lotus essence, an extremely rare high-end medicinal herb. This type of medicinal herb usually grows together with Huanglian Jing, but its quantity is extremely rare. Its appearance is almost identical to that of Huanglian Jing. If someone is unfamiliar with it, it is definitely difficult to distinguish between the two. However, unlike the low-value Huanglian Jing, Shuolian Jing is a 5th-grade pill and one of the main ingredients of Shuolian Dan. If you get it, you can trade it with a high-level alchemist and exchange it for a low-level 4th-grade pill without any problem. Entering the 10,000 medicine studio, Lin Feng's nose was filled with various medicinal fragrances emanating from numerous medicinal herbs. Looking around, I found that the moonlight stones hanging on the walls inside the store shone like daylight. At this time, there was a considerable flow of people in the store, and the staff were also extremely busy, so there was no one to greet him yet. However, Lin Feng did not care, but kept searching for the blood lotus spirit he wanted in the store. Before long, Lin Feng's eyes fixed on a pale yellow block at the corner through the transparent counter. Licked his lips and walked into the counter as if nothing had happened. Lowering his head, he looked at the pale yellow medicinal herb again. Cough, could you please help me take out this thing? Slowly retracting his greedy and excited gaze, Lin Feng lifted his head and smiled at a male shop assistant who walked by. The young shop assistant who was stopped glanced at Lin Feng, who was dressed in ordinary clothes, and then glanced at the items he requested. After discovering that it was just a piece of the lowest level Huanglian Jing, he immediately curled his lips with some impatience and took it out of the counter with a stiff expression. Huanglian Jing, a low-level medicinal herb, 100 gold coins. Lin Feng didn't care about the clerk's attitude of being narrow-minded and looking down on others. With a sneer in his heart, he casually took the Huanglian Jing, which was considered the lowest level. My nails quietly scratched lightly on it, and the slightly yellowish surface flipped open a little. Surprisingly, there was a hint of crimson like blood visible. Looking at the invisible crimson, Lin Feng was overjoyed and immediately touched his nose without leaving a trace. I took a deep sniff at the strange and somewhat bloody smell on my finger. Suddenly, deep in my eyes, I couldn't help but dance a brilliant light. Found it, blood lotus spirit. If it weren't for Lin Feng's reading of the original work, it would be based on the pharmacological knowledge he has learned over the past year. No matter what, one would never find that this inconspicuous little thing is actually a rare medicinal herb. He restrained his ecstasy and casually played with the blood lotus essence in his hand under the impatient gaze of the salesperson, then took out a cloth bag and handed it over. After weighing the weight, the salesperson nodded and then put away the coins, beginning to greet other customers. After packing his things, Lin Feng, who was about to leave, suddenly noticed a commotion at the entrance of the pharmacy. Wow, it's actually a little medical fairy. So beautiful, TSK, that waist is so thin. Idiot, do you want to die? Most of the mercenaries in Qingshan town have been treated by the little Dr. Immortal. Be careful not to be overheard and cut your tongue. Standing not far from Lin Feng, two men were whispering. After one of them uttered some teasing words, his companion quickly grabbed him and cursed softly. I'm talking nonsense, hee hee. Seemingly sensing malicious gazes from around, the man's face turned slightly pale and he was awkwardly pulled by his companions as he quickly escaped from the pharmacy. Upon hearing this, Lin Feng also approached curiously. He is also very interested in Xiao Xian, who is known as the first slender waist of the Douqi continent. Squeezing in front of the crowd, he could see clearly the face of the little medical fairy surrounded by everyone. The woman was wearing a light white dress, and although her appearance was not stunning, she could still be said to be a rare beauty. The indifferent smile on her cheeks exuded a fresh and ethereal aura, which immediately greatly enhanced the charm of the woman. His gaze turned around the woman and finally stopped on the willow waist, which was tied by a green belt. Looking at the willow waist that was not fully grasped, Lin Feng's pupils flashed with a hint of amazement. The little medical fairy in front of him is the most slender and delicate of all the women he has ever seen. I was amazed with a tsk of my mouth, but in my ear came the low laughter of the salesperson. Xiao Xian is a specially hired physician from our Wanyao studio. Throughout Qingshan town, there are countless people who like her. Every time I go to the Warcraft mountain to collect medicine, if there is Xiao Xian with me, those mercenary groups will keep the price at the lowest, and they often almost start fighting for the remaining quota. Looking at the woman in a white dress who was already sitting in her seat and treating the wounded, Lin Feng touched her chin with his palm. It has to be admitted that the kind smile shown by Xiao Xian while treating the wounded is indeed very emotional. No wonder these fierce mercenaries are as gentle as a lamb when facing her. But he knew that this seemingly weak little girl had a terrifying physique on the continent of Douqi, a poisonous body of misfortune. However, although this physique is terrifying, it can sometimes be quite enviable. After all, if you have the calamity poison body, just keep taking the poison and you can easily ascend to the realm of Dozong that ordinary people cannot reach, but after that. Looking at the weak little medical fairy, Lin Feng also had some thoughts in his heart. If he could deceive this little medical fairy, it would be to become a Taoist couple with him. In a few years, he will have a Dozong powerhouse as his support. In that case, even if he goes to the Black Horn domain, he can still get away with it. Thank you to the 2 readers who voted for the recommendation yesterday. The reader who also invested, thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 7, Entering the Warcraft Mountains. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7, Entering the Warcraft Mountains. If she can help the little medical fairy control her physique, then she is a pillar at the Dozuan level. Even if he goes to Zhongzhou, as long as he doesn't act recklessly, basically no one will come to trouble him. If it weren't for the mischievous poison body of the little Dr. Immortal, which has extremely strong side effects, it wouldn't have been possible to lose to the 3 flower eyes of the blue snake. After a long silence, Lin Feng looked at the little medical fairy who was healing the injured mercenaries not far away. After some thought, I temporarily gave up the idea of contacting the little Dr. Immortal. If you step forward now, you will not only fail to win the favor of the little Dr. Immortal. It is also easy to be mistaken for a pervert, which can attract the disgust of the little medical fairy. Looking at the already dark sky, I casually searched for an inn, opened a room, and moved in. Entering the room, closing the door, Lin Feng took out a jade box from the ring. Then carefully take the bleeding lotus essence from your pocket and put it into a jade box. He can take good care of this treasure and maybe exchange it for something good in the future. After finishing all of this, go to bed and rest immediately. One night passed quietly. The next day, the warm sunshine passed through the night and shone on the ground, completely dissipating the last bit of cold that remained at night. Lin Feng, sitting cross-legged on the bed, felt the warm sunlight and withdrew from his cultivation, jumping off the bed. After a simple wash, he walked out of the inn room. Go to the entrance of the Warcraft mountain range on the east side of Qingshan town and find suitable mercenaries to form a team. The Warcraft mountains, located in the center of the Gamma Empire, run through the entire empire from north to south, dividing the Gamma Empire into two parts, east and west. In the mountains, there are a large number of valuable and rare plants, and many high-level alchemists are also attracted to come and search for medicinal herbs. However, within the mountains, there are also various levels of Warcraft living, and entering them poses great danger for humans. If walking alone, it is even more susceptible to attacks from Warcraft. So, generally, mercenaries entering the mountains, except for some skilled and bold individuals. Most of the others enter in groups. With the strength of Lin Feng's 8-star dowsers, he can currently only deal with some first-level Warcraft or second-level Warcraft with lower attack power. If he encounters a powerful second-order Warcraft inside, his journey through time may come to an end. So, he chose a more secure method and teamed up with other mercenaries to enter the Warcraft mountains. Arriving at the entrance of the Warcraft mountains in the town, there were already many mercenaries gathered here. A series of shouts kept calling out to the individual mercenaries who wanted to enter the mountain. The mercenaries in the small town can be roughly divided into three types. One type is the tightly organized mercenary regiment, which has only 3 branches in Qingshan town, each with around 100 members, and most of the members are stronger than the fighters. Moreover, the leaders of the 3 mercenary corps are all at the level of Douqi, making them one of the most powerful forces in Qingshan town. The second type of mercenary is some temporary mercenary teams, which usually disband after completing a task. Their trust and cooperation with each other are far inferior to those of regular mercenary groups. The third type of mercenary is those who walk alone, and these people usually have some survival skills. At this moment, these loudly shouting mercenaries at the entrance of the small town belong to the second type. Standing in a corner, Lin Feng did not immediately join the mercenary team, but secretly observed which temporary team looked more rigorous. After all, in the dangerous Warcraft mountains, any negligence may lead to the tragedy of group destruction. While Lin Feng was searching for a suitable team, there was suddenly a commotion at the entrance of the small town. An excited shout rang out, "The medicine studio is about to enter the Warcraft mountain range to collect herbs. There are also little medical immortals accompanying us. There are only 50 available, and our strength should be above that of the 2-star Dou. Everyone, hurry up." Upon hearing the shout, Lin Feng was taken aback. He didn't expect that the time he entered the mountain would coincide with the day when little Dr. Xian was picking herbs. Immediately, he regained his senses and walked straight towards the person. After all, no matter what, the medicinal team of little Dr. Immortal has dozens of people, and entering the Warcraft mountains with them, ordinary Warcraft will definitely not dare to attack easily. Compared to some other mercenary teams, it is much safer. Furthermore, with a large number of people, he may not be as easily noticed by others when secretly going out to search for caves in the future. And other mercenaries who claimed to have met the conditions also rushed towards the middle-aged man dressed in the 10,000 medicine studio costume. Lin Feng, who reacted quickly crowded in front of the middle-aged man and said, "I'll sign up." Looking at the handsome young man in front of him, who was only 17 or 18 years old, the middle-aged man was taken aback and immediately smiled, saying, "Little brother, our condition is to need 2 stars. Dou." The middle-aged person emphasized the last 4 words in particular. Obviously, he did not believe that the teenager, who was only in his teens, had met the conditions. That's right, where did the little doll come from? It didn't even grow hair, so it came out and wobbled around. Stinky kid, quickly move aside and let me take this spot. The mercenaries who came slowly and failed to secure a spot immediately cursed at Lin Feng when they saw that there was still a chance to get a spot. Lin Feng ignored the cries of the mercenaries and took 2 steps forward, walking in front of a sturdy tree trunk with 2 arms. His fist suddenly clenched. The crimson fighting spirit, like a faint curtain of light, covered the fist, mixed with fierce energy, fiercely smashed against the tree trunk. Click. With a crisp sound, the thick trunk of the tree creaked and fell to the ground, splashing dust in the astonished gazes of everyone. This should be enough, right? Clapping his hands, Lin Feng smiled at the middle-aged man who was staring blankly. TSK, my little brother is really talented. At a young age, he even cultivated to become a 2-star fighter. He is truly a genius. The middle-aged man nodded in amazement and then smiled at Lin Feng, saying, all right, the last person is you. The mercenary's reward is 500 gold coins, which will escort the safety of our medicine harvesting team back and forth. We will pay you half of the reward later, and the other half will only be paid when you come back. Okay. Lin Feng smiled and nodded, not caring about the remuneration of those 500 gold coins. As long as it is convenient for him to find the cave with flying skills, he can do it without paying. I saw that the spot was taken away by the boy who came out of nowhere. The mercenaries who were watching around suddenly had to leave in frustration. However, after leaving, he still cast some strange looks at Lin Feng. Be able to become a 2-star fighter at the age of 17 or 18. This kind of talent is quite rare in this green mountain town. In the quiet forest, a large group of people walked quietly, their vigilant eyes constantly scanning the dark places among the surrounding trees. Grasping the weapon tightly in his palm, ready to deal with any unexpected situation at any time. As an old mercenary who has been working in the Warcraft mountains for many years, although this is our first collaboration, we can still maintain a basic understanding. Between eye contact, one can also recognize signals representing danger and safety from the other person's gaze. After wiping a handful of sweat from his face, Lin Feng turned around and looked at the Wanyaozhai herb-picking team behind him, which was heavily guarded. My gaze casually swept through the team, finally stopping at the small medical immortal who was surrounded in the middle like being surrounded by the stars. At this moment, Xiao Yixian also straightened up slightly, gently wiping the sweat beads on his forehead with the back of his hand. The light panting appearance, combined with the soft and beautiful cheeks, looks quite endearing. Seeing the appearance of the little medical fairy, some mercenaries around immediately had an impulse to carry it to their destination. But they also know that even if they want to memorize, the little doctor fairy will only politely refuse with a smile. When everyone's gaze converged on the little medical immortal, a handsome young man walked out of the nearby guard with a smile on his face and lowered his head to say something to the panting little medical fairy. The two of them talked for a while, and Xiao Yixian smiled and shook his head, then continued to rush towards the front. The young man's face showed no signs of anger as he was rejected by the little doctor fairy. With a faint smile and a wave of his palm, he shouted loudly, "Wolf-headed people, pay attention to me. We're about to enter the Warcraft mountains now, don't capsize in the sewer." "Yes, young captain." Upon hearing the young man's cheers, dozens of big men around immediately joined in unison. The neat tone of voice caught everyone's constant glances, even the forward little medical fairy glanced back. Very satisfied with this reaction, the young man smiled slightly, took 2 quick steps again, walked side by side with the little medical fairy, and was very eager to provide close protection. Damn it, isn't it just because his father is the commander of the Wolf-Head Mercenary Regiment? Does he think he can win the heart of the little Doctor Immortal with this? Looking at the young man who could chat with the little medical fairy up close, a mercenary man beside Lin Feng suddenly muttered in a low voice, with a strong sour tone. Squinting his eyes slightly, Lin Feng's gaze swept over the young man before finally resting on a badge on his chest, which was carved with a one-eyed wolf head. Immediately, he slowly withdrew his gaze. Although the Wolf-Head Mercenary Corps was notorious in Qingshan town, he had become accustomed to the survival rules of Douqi continent. As long as Muley and others don't come to trouble him, he is not interested in doing justice for the heavens. Moreover, he doesn't have the strength to act on behalf of heaven now. After the rest was over, Lin Feng continued to follow the team towards the Warcraft mountain range when the little medical immortal gave the order to depart. At the same time, constantly observing the surrounding environment, it is more likely to speculate in which direction the cave is located. Thank you for the recommended ticket from Book Friend 2020040317592391. Thank you for the recommended ticket from Book Friend 202004031750291158. Thank you for the recommended ticket from the Book Friend 20210301104148357470. If possible, please cast a recommendation vote or give a review to the author. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 8, Finding the Cave. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8, Finding the Cave. On the outskirts of the Warcraft Mountains. Lin Feng, who was assigned to the front of the herb-picking team and responsible for exploration, was carefully exploring in the jungle at this moment. Not long after, Lin Feng saw a flat area in front of him and briefly searched the surroundings. Realizing that there was no danger, he waved behind him to signal safety. Several other mercenaries from the exploration team behind him saw the gesture and came to Lin Feng's side. Seeing the new face beside him, Lin Feng couldn't help but marvel at the cruelty of the Douqi continent once again. Originally, he was only assigned as a member of the exploration team. After setting off with the exploration team, he was ambushed by 3 first-order monsters in less than half an hour. Although Lin Feng quickly defeated the Warcraft attacking him and turned to help other members, he still lost one member in this attack. A small-scale Warcraft attack made Lin Feng, who had just entered the Warcraft mountains for the first time, feel the cruelty here. However, in order to remain inconspicuous, Lin Feng has only used the fighting spirit of a 2-star fighter until now. At the same time, he did not use the Xuanjia fighting technique, but instead used a Huangjia intermediate fighting technique called Gravel Fist. But after a morning, except for him, the other 4 members either died or are now lying in the back recuperating. And he was also successfully promoted to captain of the exploration team. When all the members of the exploration team arrived, Lin Feng looked at one of the thin mercenaries and said, "Map." Upon hearing this, the mercenary quickly took out the map and spread it out. Lin Feng looked at the map and then pointed to the empty ground next to him, saying, "It's less than 2 hours' journey from here to the place where the medicine is being collected." Coincidentally, the medicine collection team has been going on for a long time now, so you can rest in this open space for a while, and you can also reach the valley where the medicine is being collected before evening. After speaking, Lin Feng made a mark on the map and handed it to another mercenary, saying, "Go inform the main team." "Yes, Captain." The mercenary responded, then took the map and put it away, turning around and running towards the rear. Seeing the mercenary leave, Lin Feng looked at the other 3 people again and said, "You guys, come with me and carefully investigate the surroundings to prevent any monsters from ambushing." "Yes, Captain." "Ladies and gentlemen, we are already approaching the medicinal area. Please take a break. After walking for so long, everyone is also tired." After a period of time, when the large team of the herb-picking team arrived at the location of Lin Feng and others, the soft and crisp sound of the woman suddenly sounded in the quiet team. The advancing footsteps paused slightly, and the entire team coincidentally came to a stop. Looking back at the woman in the white dress with no impurities in her smile, she nodded her head with utmost honesty. The arrival of the large team provided valuable rest time for Lin Feng and others in the exploration team. As for the security task, it is naturally entrusted to the mercenaries behind them. But most of the others sit still, with their eyes slightly closed, using their techniques to replenish the fighting energy consumed in their bodies due to rushing. Seeing no one paying attention to him, Lin Feng slowly walked towards the small forest beside him. When he looked at the map before, he remembered all the locations of several nearby cliffs in his mind. Now is a good time to confirm the existence of caves. Entering the forest, the light was dim, but this was the area he had previously scouted, so there was no need to worry about being suddenly attacked by Warcraft. As they delved deeper into the forest, the light also became increasingly dim. After walking another distance, the dim vision suddenly brightened up. Lin Feng looked up and found that he had reached the end of the small dense forest. Stepping out of the dense forest, what appeared in front of him was a slightly steep cliff. Under the cliff, there are lush green forests, which are quite beautiful. My gaze scanned the edge of the cliff, but my eyes suddenly paused before moving forward to the edge of the cliff, constantly scanning the surrounding cliffs. My gaze slowly swept over the steep wall, but in an instant, it suddenly stopped at a mountain wall covered by horizontal beams. The strange trees on the steep mountain here, although arranged very cleverly, Lin Feng still noticed a hint of abnormality here. Squinting his eyes slightly, with the help of oblique sunlight, he seemed to be able to see the pitch-black voids on the cliff through the cracks in the trees. Immediately, the corner of Lin Feng's mouth quickly rose. On the steep cliff, covered by horizontal beams, not far from the medicinal area of the Wanyao Zhai medicinal team, everything corresponds to the original work. If he's not unlucky enough to get home, then this cave is the one with flying skills. Taking note of the location, Lin Feng was ready to return to the team. After all, it was not suitable to come out for too long now. What is this? Just as Lin Feng was about to turn around and go back, he suddenly noticed that there was a rope tied to a big tree directly above the cave. He exclaimed in surprise and quickly ran towards the tree. Arriving at the big tree, Lin Feng picked up the item tied to the trunk and looked at it. After confirming that it was a rope, his face turned ugly. Did someone take the lead in getting ahead? While Lin Feng was pondering, the rope in his hand was suddenly pulled down with some force, and then began to move rhythmically. Seeing this, Lin Feng instantly understood that the person was still below. Quickly taking out a dagger from Neji, he approached the cliff with a gloomy expression and said, "If you run away, I have no choice, but since I encountered you, I'm sorry." The rope swayed for a while, and a jade-like pure white hand suddenly extended out from the cliff in front of it. Subsequently, a soft and ethereal cheeks emerged from under the cliff. Looking at that squatting in front of me, a rather delicate young man, the little Dr. Fairy was taken aback for a moment, and his little brain still couldn't react. However, when he saw the dagger flickering with a cold light in the young man's hand, the pretty face of the little medical fairy became flustered in an instant. Little Dr. Immortal. Lin Feng was also taken aback and then said coldly, "Hand over the things, otherwise don't blame me for being impolite." Upon hearing these words, a hint of panic flashed in the beautiful eyes of the little doctor. She quickly hid and said with a smile, "It turns out to be Captain Lin Feng of the exploration team. Did something fall off you? I was just picking medicine below and didn't see anything you dropped. Hand over the things in the cave below, or I'll kill you." Lin Feng has no patience to waste time with her. Although Xiao is very beautiful and has great potential, what he cares more about now is his own strength. The things inside are too valuable, especially the incomplete picture, he must get it. Upon hearing about the cave, the little doctor was taken aback, but still felt a bit determined and said, "I didn't notice any cave below even when I was picking herbs. If you're looking for something, all my things are in the bamboo basket behind me. If you want it, take it." The dagger in Lin Feng's hand moved slightly and came to the pretty face of the little doctor. He said coldly, "Don't play dumb with me. What about the things in the cave? If you talk nonsense, believe it or not, I'll give you a few cuts in the face. How will you see people in the future?" End of this chapter. Chapter 9, Confirmation of Caves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9, Confirmation of Caves. Don't. I didn't get what's in that cave. The cliff is too steep for me to get in. Upon hearing that Lin Feng was about to take action on his face, Xiao Yixian's previous calmness disappeared instantly and he quickly revealed all the information. I hope you haven't lied to me, otherwise. Really, could you also pull me up first? I can't hold on anymore. After Xiao Yixian finished speaking, his body uncontrollably slid down a short distance. Upon hearing this, Lin Feng saw the little Dr. Fairy's hand turning white from prolonged exertion and immediately grabbed it. With a slight effort, the latter jumped up from the cliff. Her delicate body drew a beautiful arc in mid-air and lightly leaped onto the mountaintop. Little Dr. Immortal had just landed, and before Lin Feng could speak, a paper bag appeared in his little hand at some point. With a sudden wave, white dust sprayed out and quickly surged towards Lin Feng. However, with the speed of the 9-section fighting power of the little Dr. Immortal, how could it escape the perception of Lin Feng's powerful soul power? Before the powder enveloped him, his legs curved slightly and he leaped back with force. I jumped a few meters away in an instant, perfectly avoiding the attack of the little Dr. Immortal. Upon seeing this, the little Dr. Fairy let out a terrible sound and quickly turned around to run towards the camp. She firmly believed that as long as she ran there, with her influence among the mercenaries in Qingshan town, even Lin Feng dared not take action against her. However, with the pitiful running speed of Xiao Yixian and the fact that he has never practiced any combat skills before, his speed cannot match that of Lin Feng. Before running 10 steps away, Lin Feng grabbed the back of Fate's neck with one hand. Lin Feng pinned his hands behind him. Looking at the despairing little medical fairy, Lin Feng smiled and said, "Sleeping grass, this low-level herb, is useless to me. I didn't expect you, this bastard, to also understand pharmacology." Looking at Lin Feng's smile that made people want to punch, the little doctor bit his silver teeth and couldn't breathe well. "I understand a little better than you." Before Lin Feng could finish speaking, the little doctor suddenly raised his toe and kicked Lin Feng fiercely across the room. "Sleeping slot." Lin Feng was startled by the sudden action of the little Dr. Fairy, and this time he was really scared. If this kick is hit, he will be ruined. With a sneer of anger, Lin Feng's right foot suddenly rushed forward, and in the end, it collided heavily with the little doctor's foot. Suddenly, the soft and beautiful face of the little Dr. Fairy was filled with pain. With a successful strike, Lin Feng did not stop. His left foot was like a ribbon, wrapping around the feet of the little medical fairy. Then the two of them fell straight and slanted down. And Lin Feng happened to tightly press the little medical fairy under his body. The soft feeling emanating from beneath his body made Lin Feng's heart tremble slightly. Looking at the shy little medical fairy with a pretty face, she immediately curled her lips and wriggled her body like a hooligan. Suddenly, their bodies fit even more perfectly. "Let go of me." The masculine aura emanating from above made the little medical immortal feel dizzy. He gritted his silver teeth and angrily said, "Otherwise, I will scream. If someone else sees you treating me like this, you won't be able to walk out of the Warcraft mountains alive." Lin Feng ignored the threat from the little Dr. Immortal and instead started teasing at the corner of his mouth. Lowering his head, his lips touched the delicate earlobes of the little medical fairy, and he whispered, "I heard that there is a kind of monster called the monkey in the Warcraft mountain range. This kind of monster, even for human women, has a considerable interest. If you dare to attack me again, believe it or not, I can throw you into the ape's nest before those mercenaries catch up with me. You bastard." Upon hearing this, the pretty face of the little Dr. Fairy turned slightly pale, clearly frightened. She has lived in Qingshan town for so long, and naturally has heard of the name of this extremely notorious Warcraft. "Let me go, I promise I won't attack you again, and at the same time, I'll tell you all the information about the cave below." Amidst Lin Feng's intimidation, the little medical fairy finally couldn't hold on and had to reluctantly surrender. With a slight smile, Lin Feng vigorously propped up his body and pulled the little medical fairy up. However, just in case, he still forcefully grabbed the other person's wrist, completely ignoring her shy and angry expression. The two of them walked towards the cliff, their eyes fixed on the cliff at the same time. After a while, the little Dr. Fairy's red lips parted slightly and she said in a reluctant low voice, "That was something I accidentally discovered during a medicinal gathering half a month ago. After the strange wood, there was a hidden cave that was difficult to discover. Inside the cave, it should have been left by a certain ancestor, but I have not entered before, so I am not very clear about the interior. However, from some traces, the ancestor who left the cave should be very strong. There are no signs of anyone entering that cave either." Lin Feng knew everything that Xiao Yixian said, and he was more concerned about whether the cave had been climbed first. "No, there is no sign of anyone moving the miscellaneous wood and gravel on the platform in front of the cave." Upon hearing this, Lin Feng finally felt relieved and said, "Since that's the case, you happen to have tied a rope too. Let's go down and explore together." Upon hearing this, Xiao Yixian immediately glanced at Lin Feng. Unexpectedly, he would share it with him, and his good feelings for him instantly improved. However, the little doctor shook his head and pondered, "Not now. I've been out for a long time now, and if I don't go back, Muley will become suspicious. Our herb harvesting team will stay overnight in the Warcraft mountains. Shall we come tonight?" "Okay," Lin Feng agreed as soon as he heard it and felt it made sense. "That's it then." The little doctor nodded slightly and did not speak again. He turned to the outsider in the dense forest. Looking at the graceful and beautiful figure slowly disappearing into the darkness, Lin Feng turned his head and cast his gaze once again towards the elusive cave. Excitedly rubbing his hands, there shouldn't be many men who are not interested in exploring treasure hunting. If it weren't for the constraints, Lin Feng would have gone down to search for treasures long ago. He chuckled softly, then turned around and walked towards the dense forest. When the two returned to the team, they found that the mercenaries who were resting in place had long been waiting in place. "Xiao Yixian, if you don't come back, I'll have to send someone to search for it." Seeing the little Dr. Fairy walking out of the dense forest, a figure hurriedly walked over. However, when he saw Lin Feng behind the little Dr. Immortal and the messy clothes of the two due to the fight just now, he seemed to have thought of something and their footsteps paused slightly. At this moment, he felt like there was something green on top of his head. In Qingshan town, who wouldn't know that Xiao Yixian was his chosen future wife, and now someone dares to take action against Xiao Yixian. Looking into Lin Feng's eyes, a hint of killing intent flashed before quickly disappearing. With a smile, he asked, "Who is this little brother?" "He is Lin Feng, the captain of the peripheral exploration team, who was just casually encountered." Xiao Yixian replied as if nothing had happened, and then said softly, "Young Master Muley, let's go. There is still a short distance, and we will arrive at the destination soon." "Hee, good." The young man, known as Young Master Muley, nodded with a smile and let the little medical fairy pass by on his side. However, as Lin Feng passed by, Muley's arm suddenly extended and stopped him. End of this chapter. Chapter 10, Treasure Exploration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Treasure Exploration. Seeing Muley blocking him, Lin Feng frowned slightly and turned his head to look at the young commander of the wolf-headed mercenary corps, saying, "Muley, what's up?" "I have no ill intentions. According to my subordinates' reports, your cultivation talent is very good." Muley smiled slightly and asked with a calm voice. "Hee, I'm just lucky. When it comes to gathering fighting energy, I take fewer detours than others." Glancing at Muley's seemingly gentle smile, Lin Feng smiled faintly. Seeing the smile on Lin Feng's face, Muley's face suddenly turned slightly blue. Back then, he had failed twice in a row, only to successfully gather his fighting spirit. Thinking about this, his killing intent towards Lin Feng increased a bit. But at least Muley also trained in the mercenary group for a few years and quickly recovered. 10 fingers crossed together, and with a smile, he said, "Are you interested in joining the Wolf-Head mercenary group? Our mercenary group treats you, a talented member, very well. After all, being alone in the Warcraft mountains can be life-threatening at any time, and having someone to take care of it is also very good. Upon hearing Mu Li's persuasion, Lin Feng smiled in his heart. With his qualifications, he was more than enough to join Yunlan's sect. How could you possibly join a wolf-headed mercenary group with no background, no strength, and no resources? Moreover, although he doesn't have much experience, he can also notice that there was clearly something wrong with the way Muley looked at him before. He shook his head and said with a smile, "Hee, I'm sorry. I don't like being constrained, so I don't have any plans to join the faction at the moment. So, I'm afraid I'll disappoint Captain Muley." "Hee, it's okay." Upon hearing Lin Feng's refusal, Muley casually waved his hand and then smiled, saying, "In the future, if you have figured it out, you can come to me anytime. The door of the Wolf-Head Mercenary Corps is always open to people with potential." With a slight hint of apology on his face, Lin Feng dodged and stepped aside from Muley, then joined the scattered troops ahead. Looking at Lin Feng, who was joining the crowd, Muley's eyes slowly narrowed, and a faint chill flashed through the depths of his pupils. Obviously, Lin Feng's previous actions have made this young leader very unhappy. "Kid, not only are you not clear with the little Dr. Immortal, but you also dare to refuse me. No matter what achievements you have in the future, tonight, I will keep you forever in the Warcraft mountain range." 10 fingers clenched tightly, and in Muley's voice, there was no longer the previous gentleness, but a hint of coldness sandwiched between them. In Qingshan town, he has been treated with care from childhood to adulthood, no matter who encounters him. And now, Lin Feng, this furry kid, dares to offend him twice within a day, which makes him so angry. "Ma Si, come here," waved to a mercenary beside him and said. "Young captain," the mercenary saw this and quickly approached Muley's side, muttering in silence. "Tonight, bring a few clever ones and touch that kid's tent, then." Speaking, Muley raised his hand to his neck and made a cutting motion. "Don't worry, young captain. That kid will definitely be attacked by Warcraft tonight and die a tragic death." The mercenary immediately understood Muley's meaning and left to prepare. Seeing this, Muley sneered and said, "Kid, dare to provoke me. I won't be able to walk out of the Warcraft mountains again." After Xiao Yixian returned to the team, the medicinal team set off again. The journey this time was much quieter compared to the previous distance. Although there were still 2 waves of Warcraft attacks on the road, neither caused much commotion. As the sky gradually darkened, the team finally safely arrived at the destination of the medicinal team, a sunken basin covered in herbs. In the basin, various herbs grow. Entering here, the fragrant medicinal scent floats in the air. Taking a deep breath immediately made one feel a bit relaxed and happy. "Everyone camp here, be careful not to damage the surrounding herbs." Wiping off the sweat from his forehead, the little medical fairy turned around and smiled softly at the crowd. Upon hearing the little medical fairy speak, the mercenaries around immediately responded loudly, and then began to set up a tent in full swing. And Lin Feng glanced at the little medical fairy who had started directing the herb harvesting team to excavate herbs, and then wandered around the basin on his own. For some reason, the energy inside this sunken area is much denser and purer than outside, which is why these herbs can grow in batches here. The basin has a wide area, and its internal terrain has not even been explored by Wan Yaozhai. The current location of Lin Feng and his team is just the periphery of this huge basin. I walked around the periphery and found that there were all some low-level herbs here. I shook my head in disappointment and glanced at the dark interior. After pondering for a while, I still chose to go back obediently. With his current strength, there are basically crises everywhere in this dangerous mountain range of Warcraft. Returning to the campsite, the white tents were already standing up, and many mercenaries were busy preparing for dinner. Entering the campsite, one could see the pretty little medical fairy standing in the center at a glance, and beside her, Muley was also closely following. As Lin Feng looked at the two of them, Xiao Yixian and Muley also turned their gaze towards them with a sense of empathy. The 3 people's gaze met, but the meanings contained in their gaze were somewhat different. With a smile on his face, Lin Feng nodded at the two of them, then turned around and walked towards the inside of a tent. Looking at Lin Feng's disappearing figure, Mu Li smiled and said to the little doctor, "Lin Feng's cultivation talent is very good, and I believe his achievements will definitely not be low in the future." "Perhaps," said the little doctor with a faint smile, non-committal. "I have gone to count the medicinal herbs. Could you please help manage the order in the camp, young Master Muley?" Smiling slightly at Muley, Xiao Yixian nodded at the latter before moving towards a larger tent in the center. Staring at the graceful figure and waiting for its owner to disappear from sight, Muley withdrew his gaze somewhat unsatisfied. However, thinking of what had happened this morning, he clenched his palms slightly with force. In the midst of the bonfire, night slowly descended upon the mountains. Darkness enveloped the forest, and the branches and leaves stretched out like fierce beasts waving their teeth and claws. As night fell, the camp gradually fell silent. Apart from the mercenaries guarding the night, there was only the faint crisp sound of the firewood exploding in the flames. In the silent darkness, a tent suddenly moved slightly, and a graceful black shadow quietly slipped out of the tent. Then quietly slipped from the security loophole into the pitch-black forest. Shortly after the shadow left, another shadow emerged from another tent, closely following the shadow ahead. In the dense forest, occasional distant wolf howls can be heard, making people feel a bit creepy. As the two black shadows rushed towards each other, they gradually moved further and further away from the camp. In the darkness, Lin Feng raised his head slightly and, with the help of the faint moonlight, looked at the graceful and beautiful figure not far ahead. He smiled faintly and quickly chased after her. Treasure exploration, it's starting. Thank you for the recommended ticket from the book friend 20203011041483574770. Thank you for the recommended ticket from book friend 2020040317461763. Thank you for the recommended ticket from Empty City Xian Hongchen. Thank you for the recommended ticket from Noanningmen Mu Yunjian. Thank you for the recommended ticket from Shangxin Satian. End of this chapter.